Hello and welcome to my Topiary Lantern tutorial. Here we will create not only the vase lantern, but all the beautiful peonies, buds, florist ball, and foliage. The file can also double as a dish for candy or potpourri. All you do is omit the vase insert and topiary portion. This project would be beautiful to make for your wedding table decor, home, or for Mother's Day. There's so many possibilities to customize this project to match your decor. Don't forget to subscribe and visit www.decovera.com for the matching lamp project files. So without further ado, let's gather our supplies and get crafting. So here are two sides of the vase, and what I've done is I went ahead and folded on the score line as follows. So this is going to be a mountain fold, valley fold here, and all these sides here will be mountain folds. This is a valley fold and a mountain fold, and all these little tabs here are a mountain fold. And you'll be doing the same thing to the other side as well. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, so here we have two sides of our vase, one with tabs, one without. And you're going to take this raw edge and line it up with the score line on the tab. Okay, making sure that it's flush at the top and it's lining up with that score line. Okay, and then you're going to hold that down and let that dry. Once it's dry, then you'll go off to the subsequent tabs. Okay, all the while making sure that you are lining up those score lines as you go, making sure that this raw edge here is lined up with that score line. And just do one tab at a time, a little bit of glue, and just continue on that way. Okay, so go ahead and do that to all four sides, assemble them together, and then we'll go off to the next step. Okay, so here I have a piece from the top of my vase. There's 4 of these pieces, and what you're going to do is you're going to mountain fold along these lines here, 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 and here. We'll leave these 2 little score lines alone. They're just for placement, and then you'll do a mountain fold here. And then you're going to be folding it like so. So you have your little, see a little score mark here, rectangle, that stays on the outside. And what you'll be doing is you'll be adding glue onto this tab here. And the best way to do this is to line it up with that score line and the raw edge, and then just flatten it out like this. And then, so you can apply your glue there, and then just go like this. And then you can just reshape it once it's dry into this shape here. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and then we'll go off to our next step. Okay, so this little piece is dry now, and I'm just wiggling it back and forth on my table here just to unstiffen it, because it tends to warp when it dries. And then what you're going to do is you're going to be adding glue here and on your little tabs here with a little triangle on both sides. And you'll just insert your tab and your triangle like so. Okay, making sure that your score lines and your raw edges are lined up, and then let that dry. You'll do that to all 4 sides. Okay, so here I have the top of my vase, and I already went ahead and mountain folded all these tabs, these inner tabs here. And what we're going to do is add a little bit of glue all the way around the perimeter here, and then just glue this down, making sure that you've got it centered. You can maybe push in the sides just so that the raw edge is meeting with the score line. Okay, let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll go off to our next step. Here we have the inner part of our vase, and what you're going to do is just going to make sure that you mountain fold along all of these score lines, making sure that the folds are nice and crisp. And then what you'll do is, with your tabs all towards the bottom, just line up the edges, making sure that that raw edge is lined up nicely against that score line. And then you'll do the same to the other edge. Okay, so you'll end up like with a box like so. And then what you'll do is you'll just take this box insert, glue around these tabs at the bottom and just place this in. Okay, and then let that dry, and then we'll go off to the next step. So here we've completed our inner vase, mostly. We just have to add the reinforcement, okay, for this area here. And you just glue that down, okay? So that'll just make it a lot sturdier. So go ahead and do that, and we'll go off to the next step. Okay, so here I've got the top of my vase and my inner vase box, and I sort of jimmied it on through. It is a snug fit. Just be very careful as you're putting it through and making sure that the box is flush with the top of the vase here, okay? And once that's all aligned, what you're going to do is you're going to take a little scrap piece of paper with a bit of glue and come at it from this way, okay? Putting some glue on that tab, and just do about maybe about an inch and a half at a time. And just come over, just press down like so, okay? And then you'll go ahead and you'll continue all along, always making sure as you go that you are lined up here, that you are flush with this top, okay? And just do a little bit at a time, let it dry, and then go off to the next, okay? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to be adding these two bottom pieces to your vase. I went a bit ahead of myself and I put the top on before putting the bottom piece on. So I would just place this in here. Of course, this will be a lot easier for you without the top there. And just glue that in, like so. And then you'll take the other piece and that will be glued onto the bottom to solidify, okay? So go ahead and do that, and then we'll go off to our next step. So I'm about to glue the top of my vase to the vase body, and what you're going to do is just going to slip it on in here. There should be enough ease, and you're going to make sure that this score line here on your vase body lines up with the bottom here, okay? So that it fits right in there. So again, you could add glue beforehand, or probably which is better to do is just take a scrap piece of paper, and like we were doing before, just putting a bit of glue in these seams here. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and then we'll go off to our next step. So here I'm just creating the supports for my vase. I used white foam board, which is about a 1/4 inch thickness. And what I did first of all is I just measured from the bottom of the box to the bottom of the vase, okay? And in my case, the measurement was 1 7/8. Yours might be slightly different. I cut out one piece of foam board initially, and I just placed it inside just to see if it was supporting properly, making sure that it wasn't putting too much stress on the top here, okay? Once I was certain of that, then I went ahead and I cut out 16 of these pieces, and what you're going to do is you're going to glue 4 of them together like so, and then you're going to add your hot glue and basically place them at each corner of the inner box, okay, making sure that you have clearance for your LED light puck. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and then we'll go off to our next step. Okay, so here I'm just gluing my supports. And what I've done is I have them in place, as we were talking about before, but then what I do is I just sort of tilt it out a little bit and then add a bit of my hot glue here and then quickly put it back in its place at the corner. And you don't need a whole lot of glue for this, and you're just really going to do the top. You don't have to do the bottom. Okay, so go ahead and do that to all 4 sides, and then we'll go off to the next step. Okay, so here I've cut out my piece of vellum. And what you're going to do is you're going to score where those 2 notches are. You're just going to line up your ruler with those 2 notches, and then you'll just take your scoring tool and just run a line there. And then you'll fold it carefully. Okay. Now it may end up a bit too folded, which is not what you want. So just after you've done that, just lay it back on the table like so. Okay, so it's about like that. Okay, so go ahead and do that to all 4 of your vellum pieces, and then we'll go off to the next step. Okay, so here I'm just positioning my vellum on the vase body, and what I'm doing is I'm making sure that this line is lined up with the score line, and this raw edge is also lined up, and then it's also centered. Okay, so once you feel that it's fairly centered, what you're going to do is you're going to run some glue underneath there at the top, and then just glue this top down. Very, very, very little bit of glue, and then you'll go ahead and you'll do the rest. Okay, just little spots here. Now you're just going to do one side at a time, and then you're going to put your veneer on, and then you'll go off to the next side. You just want to keep it open so that you can get on in the inside to put your veneer. Okay, so go ahead and do that to one side, and then we'll go off to the next step. Okay, so here I have one of my vase side pieces, and what I'm doing is I'm just scoring with my scoring tool where the notches are. So I've just taken my ruler and just lined it up with those notches, and then I just went over with my scoring tool. You just carefully go across these little areas here where the foliage is, and you can do the same here, and you'll do the same here, and then it'll all be valley folds. Okay, and then just flatten it out like so. Maybe give it a little bit of a turn. Okay. Go ahead. Okay, so here I'm just positioning my veneer. I'm making sure that it's lined up here at the bottom. I haven't put any glue on yet. I'm just making sure that I've got everything positioned correctly. So you want to make sure that it's flush with the bottom and it's flush with the sides. Okay, and then just going to check up here, make sure everything's looking all right. And then what you're going to do is you're going to glue the bottom first, just this area here. What you're wanting to do is avoid gluing onto the vellum in any of the areas. And you'll just do a little zigzag of glue here, and you'll just take your scrap piece of paper and just kind of spread it out thinly and evenly. And then you'll just bring this over and line it up and let that dry. Okay. Then what you're going to do is you're going to do the same thing to the top here. Again, avoiding the vellum, you're just doing this area here, putting a little zigzag of glue, spreading it out nice and even. This will be glued down at the bottom, of course, and you're going to come in and make sure that it's nicely adhered here. And then what you're going to do is once that's sticking down correctly, then you're going to come in and do this area here, but you're going to use your little piece of paper with glue and just go on in there and hold that down. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to check on the side and see if there's any areas that are lifting. Okay, and what you'll do is you'll come in with your, again with your scrap piece of paper, and just come into these little areas here. Just a little bit of glue. Okay, and then just rub it down gently to get it to stick down. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and then we'll go off to our next step. Okay, so I just wanted to add a little bit more about applying the veneer. So what you're going to do, as we were doing before, we were just lining things up, but also before you start gluing, just take a look and see if there's little areas that are lifting up here when you kind of have it positioned. And what you can do is there's areas that are sticking up. You can just go in and just kind of give it a little turn with your finger here, just to shape it a little bit. Just lay it back down and see how it goes. Now if it's lifting, if it's still lifting, what you can do is later on you can just go in and just add a little bit of glue with a toothpick and just glue it down to the vellum, but very, very sparingly. Okay, so here I'm shaping my corner leaf, and what I'm doing is I'm just taking my finger here and I'm just giving a little bend at the intersection of the stem and the leaf. Okay, and I'm just going up and doing each and every single leaf except for the top 3 here. And then I just give it a little curve. And what you're going to do is you're going to apply it on the sides here, and this is just to cover up your seams. And you're just going to line it here at this score line here, tack it down, and then I tacked it roughly about 3 or 4 times going up, all the while making sure that I'm centered on that seam. Okay. And you just continue along all the way up and just take your time with it. Okay, so here I have the one of the pieces for my vase insert. And so what you're going to do is you can take your 3/8 dowel, or you could take a pencil and just establish that curve like so. And then what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that this raw edge is lined up against that score line, and you're going to glue that down. Again, you could use your pencil or your dowel as leverage to glue it down. Just make sure that that score line is lined up against that raw edge. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and then we'll go off to our next step. So here I have the pieces for my vase insert. So what you're going to do is you're going to fold along all of the score lines. You'll be doing mountain folds. And then you're going to line up the score line with the raw edge here. Just glue that down. And just basically be closing these sides here. Okay, just glue all of those down. Now leave the one side open for now, and then we'll go off to our next step. Okay, so I've glued down all 3 sides of my vase insert, and then I took my cylinder and I jimmied it on through the top and then through to the bottom. See, as you can see here. Now before I did that, I sort of squeezed the ends just to fit it through the hole. It is a snug fit. Just take your time with it. And then you'll fold down those tabs along the score line and glue the both of them down like so. And then you'll finally glue down that side. And then you'll take your larger square and you'll put that on what will be the bottom to solidify. Okay, so you'll still have it like this. So go ahead and do that, and then we'll go off to the next step. So here I have my topiary box insert. I'm just adding my green topper just to finish it all off. So you'll just position it, making sure that it aligns on the side and in the middle, and then just glue that down. Okay, so go off and do that, and we'll go off for our next step. Here I have my replacement for a florist styrofoam ball, or a florist ball. This one is made out of newsprint, but again, you can use a florist ball approximately 5 inches in diameter. But with this, what I did is I started off scrunching up a bit of newsprint, and then I just continually wrapped it and started to roll it to get it into shape until I had a ball like so. And this one's about 17 inches in circumference. So once I had it to the shape I wanted it, then I used some packing tape here, and I just wrapped it a little bit, and then I wrapped it with some masking green painter's tape. Okay, or you could just wrap it with regular masking tape and then paint it green. You could do that as well, but again, you can also use a florist foam ball and skip this step altogether. And then what you're going to do is you're going to use your X-Acto blade and just try to work a hole in your ball about 3.5 inches deep. Okay, and so once you've completed that, then you can go ahead and you can paint your dowel. This dowel is about 3/8 of an inch in diameter, and you can paint it the same color green as the base color of your leaves. So just make sure that you paint it and let it dry, and then you can just insert it into your styrofoam ball like so. Add a bit of, before you do that, obviously add a little bit of glue from your glue gun just to secure it in place. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and then we'll go off to our next step. So here we have the centerpiece of our peony flower. And you can see that mine's a little bit curled, but you can go ahead and use your scoring tool or with some scissors, just give it a little bit of a curl. And also all the while making sure that all these little fringes are separated. Okay, and then what you'll do is you'll take a toothpick and you'll just anchor it down here and just start to carefully roll the center, all the while making sure that these edges continue to meet. And just keep rolling. And then what you'll do is you'll end up with a sort of a shape like this. You'll put a little dab of glue, hold it down, wait till it dries. And then what you can do is sort of fluff it up. Okay, just making sure that they're all separated, the fringe. Okay, And then once that's done, you'll take your pigment ink. I've got sort of a muted orange color here. This is from Color Box. And then you'll just give a little bit of color here at the tips. Okay. So go ahead and do that, and then we'll go off to our next step. Okay, so here we have the petals for our peony flower. So in this case, you're going to be cutting out 3 large, 3 medium, 1 small, and 1 center for each one of your peony flowers. And then you're going to need some shaping tools. These ones are for gum paste flowers. They're from Wilton. They're made out of plastic. In this case, this one is 3/16 of an inch at the small end. The large end is about 5/16 diameter. And then this tool here is about 1/2 an inch on the large side and 6/16 of an inch on the smaller side. You don't need this rounded neck either, so it can just all be ball tools like this, ranging from 3/16 of an inch to 1/2 inch. And you can get these on Amazon. And then you're also going to need some tablespoons or soup spoons. So you need a shallow one for your larger petals, like this, and then one that's a little bit deeper. Okay, this is a tablespoon, it's a deeper one. And then maybe one that's maybe smaller width-wise, but deeper a little bit, or again, a little soup spoon, whatever you have on hand that has a similar shape. And then you're going to need a mouse pad or a foam mat. So a surface that's soft that you can shape your flowers on. And these you can get at the dollar store or wherever, or those foam mats. Okay, so go ahead and gather all of those, and then we'll go off for next step. Here I have the center petal layer, and I'm using my smaller tool, and I'm just going to start shaping the leaves like so, the petals like so. So just kind of making a circular motion like this. Okay, put a decent amount of pressure, and then you just make this movement like so, okay, towards the center. And you see how they kind of curl up like that? And you'll do that to every single petal, and then you'll end up with a shape like this. And just make sure that it's, you know, curling nicely. And then you can just take your tool and put a decent amount of pressure in the middle, okay, to get it to curl towards the center even more. Okay, so you'll end up with this sort of a shape. Okay, so here I have my petal middle layer, and I have my flower middle. And what you're going to do is you're going to take a pin and just run it through the middle here, like so. Okay, and then you'll put a bit of glue on your center and just run it through onto that pin. This is just to help with placement. And then just hold that down. Okay, and then once it's completely dry, what you're going to do is you're going to bring these petals in like so, and then in areas where you see the petals are overlapping right here, just put a little bit of glue with your toothpick here, and then just hold it down. You can also use your tweezers to hold that down, and just go around and see areas where you can add a bit of glue. And it's just enough to give it that shape. You don't have to do every single one. It's just enough to kind of hold it in place like so. Okay, so it's kind of like this. All right, and don't forget, once it's dry, to remove this pin here. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and then we'll go off to the next step. So here I have my smaller petal, and I've begun shaping it. And what you're going to need is your smaller stylus, the 3/16. And what you're going to do is you're going to go around the edge of the petal with a fair amount of pressure, okay, all the way around, like so. Okay, you can see I'm putting a fair amount of pressure here. And once you've done that, then you're going to take your spoon here, the one that's a bit smaller and deeper, and you're just going to line it up, this edge here, with the edge of your spoon, like so. Okay, and then you'll take your your smaller ball tool, the 6/16, and you're just gonna push it in here and in a circular motion, just shape it. And try to avoid, if you can, deep wrinkles around the edge. It's okay if they're here. Just try to avoid them around the edge if you can. Okay, and you'll just continue to do this on every single petal. And once you've completed that, you will go in the middle and you'll shape it here in the middle, trying to curl those petals towards the center. Okay, so go and do that. We'll go off to the next step. So here I've completed shaping the petals of the small petal layer. And what I did is when there were some wrinkles that were a little bit too deep, I went in and kind of ironed them out. Just a little bit, you know, gave it a little bit of pressure there just to iron them out. And of course I made sure that I really shaped that center. And once you've done that, you're going to make sure that you've got each petal is on top of the next, like so. This one's on top, on top, on top, okay? And you're going to kind of turn it and kind of push down at the same time until you get this kind of pentagon shape. You see here, kind of like a Hershey's Kiss. All right, sort of cone-like here. And you're just going to press down a little bit to give it a slight bend. You don't want to fold it down. You just want the slight bend in the side so it kind of keeps a bit of its shape like this. Okay. So go ahead and do that, and then we'll go off to the next step. So here I finished gluing down the petal centers, and I used my little round nose pliers to hold them down. I didn't do every single one, just enough to give it that shape. And you know, I used my toothpick with a bit of glue here and just glued them down like so. So now I've got this shape. What you're going to do is you're just going to take your pin and put it through the small petal layer, and you put the glue here. Just try to avoid the center so you don't end up gluing your pin to the middle. And then you'll just run that through like so, and hold that down, let it dry somewhat, and then you're going to try to keep that shape of that small petal like you had before, where the petals are going over top of the next petal like so, you see. And you can see how they're sort of tapered at the top and wider at the bottom. And then once you've done that and this is nicely dry, then you're going to go in and you're just going to add some glue here at the edges. You may not have to do every single petal, just enough to kind of keep its shape, like so. And then you can remove the pin once it's, you know, midway through. You think it's dry enough just to keep that, you want to just keep that hole open. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll go off to the next step. Okay, so here I have my medium petal, and I've started to shape it. Again, I'm using the 3/16 inch tool, and I've just been going around the edges as we did before, like so, putting a fair amount of pressure, trying to kind of ruffle up those edges. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your sort of deeper tablespoon here, this one, and you're going to line up this edge here with the edge of the tablespoon as we did before, and just use your thumb to kind of get that in place, and then use your smaller end of your ball tool and then just carefully make a turn and just continue turning this way, shaping it. And again, trying to avoid the big wrinkles on the tips. You just want to keep the big wrinkles to the lower end of the petal here. Okay, and you'll go ahead and you'll do that to every single petal. And then once you've done that, then you're going to go ahead in the middle and you're going to press down in the middle. And you should end up with a sort of shape like so. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to make sure that, again, the petals are overlapping each other, one after the next. This one goes on top, on top, on top, on top. So you end up with this sort of shape. And then you're going to turn like we did before to make that pentagon shape. Okay, see what it looks like in the behind. It's about a ½ inch from this point here to where it starts to kind of turn over. Okay, So go ahead and do that to all of your medium petals, and then we'll go off to the next step. Okay, so I finished shaping the medium petal, so now we're going to add the center, which we were working on before. And what you want to make sure to do is that you offset the petals when you're placing it in here. So you kind of, you see I've sort of offset it instead of having one petal behind the next. Kind of want to have it offset like so. And what you're going to do is you're going to add a bit of glue on the bottom here. Try to avoid the center, especially if you're using the pin technique. And you don't have to use this technique, it's just, it helps to center, to make sure everything is centered. Because what you can find is that near the end, you only realize then that your center is off. So it is helpful initially, but you don't have to do this technique. But once you've got this sort of set in place, you've got it offset, you put your glue on, hold it down, let it dry, and then you're going to make sure that all your petals, again, are overlapping one over the next, like so. Okay, like that, and you'll have that sort of shape. And you'll let that dry a bit, and then you can start to kind of glue some of these petals down just to hold it a bit. You don't have to do every single petal, it's depending on how open you want your flower to be. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and we'll go off to the next step. Okay, so here I finished gluing the medium petal to the center, and I just put some glue on some of the edges here, just until I got it to the shape and it was kind of holding it shaped the way I liked. And then you're just going to put some glue around here, making sure not to hit that center point. And then you're going to add your pin. That's in case you're going to do that method. You don't have to, but it helps. And then you're just going to offset the petals. Make sure they're offset so they're not lined up right behind each other. And then you're just going to hold it down. And then you can make sure that, again, your petals are going one on top of the next, like so. Okay. And just get it to the point. Now you could keep it like this. You can also check with your third petal. Just add your third petal quickly. Just take a look and see how you like the placement, how you like the opening. If you want it to be more closed, your flower, if you want it to be more open, that's up to you. And then you can decide whether you want to glue some of these areas here. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and then we'll go off to the next step. Okay, so I've got my second medium petal glued down, and I didn't end up gluing any of these petals onto one another because I kind of like the openness of it, so I was happy with that. And again, take a look at reference photos of peonies. Just have maybe a picture next to your workspace as reference. And then what we can do is just add some glue here once again. Put the pin through the petal, the third medium petal, and then just run it through like so. Again, offsetting and taking a look and seeing if you want to glue some other petals down, and just hold it down and do a bit of shaping as you go. Okay, and then we'll go off to the next step. Okay, so here I have one of my large petals, and again I'm using the 3/16 inch of tool, and then you're just going to go ahead and you're going to start to, again, like we were doing before, just going around, same procedure, okay, and you'll do that on every single petal, okay, until you get a nice ruffle and shaping. And then you're going to take your shallow tablespoon, okay, and you're going to place this edge, again, on this edge here, and just kind of give it a bit of shaping with your thumb first to get it anchored in place. And then you're going to take your large ball tool and just give it a turn here, like so. And you'll do that to every single petal. And then once you're done that, you're going to go ahead and you're going to shape it in the middle, okay? And you'll end up with something like this. Once again, our little sort of pentagon shape. You're going to put one petal over the next and kind of turn it and get it into this sort of shape. Okay, so like a pentagon once again. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and then we'll go off to our next step. Okay, so here I have 3 of my large petals that I've gone ahead and they're already shaped. And then what you're going to do is you're going to glue two of them together, two of the large ones together, again making sure that they're offset. You can use your pin to make sure that it's centered and make sure they're glued down and let them dry. And then you're going to take another large petal and again offsetting it. You can run your pin through here, and you can also, once you've glued it down, you can sort of play with it a bit. It's depending on how closed you want your flower. So just kind of shape it a bit more, because it's a bit more difficult to shape it once it's inside the next two layers. Okay, and then you're going to go ahead and you're going to put them all together like so. Okay. All right, so go ahead and do that, and then we'll go off to the next step. Okay, so here I've completed gluing all the layers of my flower together, and it's pretty much dry. And what I'm using now is I'm using my toothpick, or you can use some round nose pliers. And I'm just going ahead and I'm just adding a bit of curl to the edges of the petals. You don't have to do this, but you know, you can go ahead and just randomly put a little bit of curl in or out to your petals like so. Okay, just add a bit of life to it. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and then we'll go off to our next step. So here I'm getting ready to shape my leaves for my peony. And what you're going to do is you're going to just flip it over to the wrong side and just take your ball tool and then just start to do a little bit of shaping. Now I'm pushing down really hard, but again, if you're using 65-pound cardstock, which is what I recommend you do, you're not going to want to press down as hard as this. Okay, just continue. Give it a bit of shaping here. And then you're going to turn it over, and you're going to start doing your vein. You're going to take your smaller tool, your smaller ball tool, and you're just going to start doing your veins. Okay. I'm doing one long one here, and then you can see I'm kind of, okay, I'm pressing down pretty hard, but you may not want to do that if you're using the 65-pound. Okay. And I'm going to run another one carefully down here. And I'm going to do the same thing with the veining here. Okay, and you'll do it to this one, this side too. And you go ahead and you'll end up with something like this. Okay, I know we're going to do some more shaping to it later, but just go ahead and do this to all your leaves, and then we'll go off to the next step. Okay. So here I'm starting to shape the calyx. So what you're going to do, like we did before, is just going to flip this over, and you're going to start to shape each and every leaf. Again, don't press as hard as I am. I'm just trying to soften the fibers because this is 110-pound cardstock, but I do recommend again that you use 65-pound, so you're not going to go as hard as I am. And then you're going to turn it over once you've done it to every single leaf. Is you're going to go ahead and you're going to start to do your veining. And again, look at some pictures just to see what it should look like. Okay, and okay, so something like that. You'll end up with something like this. Again, you can see the veining. Looks kind of nice. Okay, so go ahead and do that, all the calyxes, and then we'll go off to the next step. Okay, so here we have our little sprig or branch, and what I'm about to do is I'm about to ink it with this sort of mossy green color. Again, this is optional. It's just simply because I wasn't too keen on the color that I had for the green, so I wanted to kind of mute it down, so you may not have to do this. So I went ahead and I mostly stuck to the branches. So I added ink to this area here, and I stayed away from the berries, and I did it to the front and the back. Okay, and then once you've done that, then you're going to take your foam mat or mouse pad, and you're going to take your ball tool, your smaller ball tool, and you're going to go ahead and start to shape the berries. Like so, just in a circular motion. Maybe you want to use the larger one on the larger berries. and just add a bit of pressure there. Okay, end up kind of this sort of rounded shape, sort of like this. Okay, and once you've done that, then you'll go ahead and you'll take your yellow and you'll just start to hit it with the yellow. Okay, you'll end up with something like this. And then you can start to sort of shape it with your fingers. You know, maybe every other branch, start shaping it so it kind of sticks up and looks a bit more lifelike. Okay, you can use a toothpick, you can use a dowel to turn the branches, add a little curl. So go ahead and do that, and then we'll go off to our next step. Okay, so here I have my pieces for my peony buds. And so here you're going to have this sort of round piece here. And what you're going to do is you're just going to take your shaping tool and you're just going to go around the edges here and just kind of get those edges to curl. And then just go around in a circular motion. Okay, like so. And just keep doing it. And then once you've done that, then what you're going to do is add a bit of glue. You're going to see a little notch here. So you're just going to take this and then hold it down and glue that down, okay? And then you'll end up with something like this. So what you'll do is you'll continue to shape it. You might want to use your larger ball tool and just go around and just give it a little bit more. Okay, so you'll end up with something like this. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take this piece, and as we did with our flowers, you're going to start shaping this as well. And you're just going to ruffle it a little bit more along the edges here with your sort of smaller ball tool. And just turn it here. And you'll do that to every single petal. And then you'll take this tool here and curl it to the center like so. Okay, so it'll end up like that, and it will eventually end up like this. And then again, you'll go in the center and you'll get it to curl even more. Okay, so go ahead and do that to all of your peony buds, and then we'll go off to the next step. Okay, so here I'm inking my leaves and my calyx, and what I did is I went in with this moss green. You can use your dauber. And I just went in with the moss green a little bit here, and then I added a bit of yellow. And after that, I added a bit of this old pink. I put some on a dauber, very, very little, and just very lightly went over it. And then you could go over it with moss again if it's too intense. So, and again, I did that to the front and the back. And with this one, I just did the moss green and the yellow. And to the front and the back. I might go in again with the moss green. And then with this one, what I did is I, again, put moss green, a little bit of yellow, and then I went in with the pink very lightly on the tips, okay? Kind of wiping with my finger or with a clean dauber as I went. And then I had this raspberry color, and I just added very little. I put it on a dauber. I took a bit of the ink off the dauber, and very, very lightly went in on those tips. And if you by mistake put too much on, you can just go in with your finger, quickly wipe it off, maybe add a bit of pink to tone it down. Okay, and in this case, you're only going to do it on the one side. This side I just left clear. So you just really need to do it on the one side in this case only. Okay, so go ahead and do that to all of your petals and all of your leaves and calyx, and then we'll go off to the next step. So here I'm shaping my leaves and my calyx once again. And so what I did here is I folded along the main veins. Okay, gave it a nice little fold. And then I took my dowel, could be a dowel, pencil, whatever, and just, rolled these little edges here. You could use your dowel to do some little curls at the tips. See, and just kind of, give it a bit of a turn here. Okay, and just play with it. They don't all have to be the same. You can use a toothpick. You can use your bone folder. And again, same here. I again fold it along the main vein, and then I sort of pinch the tips. And you can use, again, your bone folder to give it a bit of a turn. And then I went in the middle, okay, to kind of shape it like so. Again, turning these. You can use your, again, your bone folder to do a bit of a turn here on the edge of the leaves like so. Okay. And then with this part here is you're going to turn it around, and again, like we did before with the peony flower, is going around like so. So I'm going again just around the edges like so. Okay, and then I took the smaller tablespoon and I went in like so. Again, making a turn like this. Okay, and then I went in the middle. Okay, in the middle here. So then you'll end up with sort of a shape like so. And again, we'll do one petal on top of the next, on top of the next, like we did with the flower. And again, it's going to go, this is going to go like so, once we have the bud and everything in there. Okay, so go ahead and do that to all of your leaves in Calyx, and then we'll go off to the next step. Okay, so here I'm creating the center ball for my bud, and I used a sheet of paper towel, which I just crunched up in a little ball that's about 1 1/4 inch diameter. And then I added a bit of tape going this way, a bit of masking tape again, and another piece going this way. And then I just looked for my center, and I just put a little hole in there just to mark it out. And then you're going to take your little cap piece, add a bit of glue to the back, and just put it on top, centering it on your ball. Let that dry, and then what you're going to do is you're going to be gluing it to the petal piece. But you want to make sure that your seam is lined up with one of the petals, and also making sure that you're lining up the center here with the center there. And you're just going to take your petals and line them up like so. Make sure that you're about usually about 1/4 of an inch away from the center. Okay, and then you'll take petals from the side and secure that in place. Okay, and then you'll go ahead and you'll start to glue down all your petals, and you'll end up with something like this. And then you're going to take your pigment dye and just give it a bit of a brushing. It should be about slightly darker than the color of your paper. And then you're going to take your calyx piece that's already been shaped, and you're going to again line up that hole with the hole on the calyx, glue it down, and then bring your petals one on top of the other like we did before, and glue it down like so. Okay, make sure that's nice and dry before you place it into your leaves. Again, you're going to be lining up the holes and place them in like this. I think it's easier to place the petals, having the petals line up with the leaf like so, you see? Because it's easier for them to kind of come up like this. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and then we'll go off to our next step. Okay, I just wanted to add a little tip here. Now I glued down the 4 petals, as you can see, and just to secure it in place. And then with the remnants of the rest of the petals, what you're going to do is just you don't have to put glue all the way up to the tip. Just leave like maybe about 1/4 of an inch loose. Okay, so it's not like completely glued down, so it kind of sticks up a little bit. Okay, you can see here in this one, I kind of left a bit loose at the top. Okay, a bit more texture. So go ahead and do that, and we'll go off to our next step. Okay, so you can see I've started to add the flowers to my base, my green ball. And what I've done is I started off by adding one flower on the top, in the very center at the top. And then I varied the colors and added 5 going all the way around, making sure that they were evenly spaced all the way around. And then I added a second row, you can see here, and I put those flowers in between the ones from the first row. You can see this here, okay? And then what I started to do is I started to add the leaves. And what I did is I bent the leaves like so on the, you can see it's the front of the leaf. And I put a bit of hot glue there and I tucked that in, okay, till I hit the ball. And I used a dowel or whatever and just sort of held it down. Or you could use your craft tweezers. And I did about 4, again, varying the different types of leaves all the way around. And then I put my sprigs. So I put one sprig that went one way and another that went the other way, just to kind of vary it. You can sort of see here some of the berries, I've just sort of flipped them around. Okay, and again, I did the same sort of thing. I curved it, put the glue on the top here of the stem, placed one there, and then I staggered another one below. And then I put my bud in between that. So basically what I did is I took the bud, a bud, again varying the colors, staggering the colors, and I placed it underneath like so, right in between, tucked in between these 2 flowers here. Okay, and of course the sprigs will cover up that green space. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and then we'll go off to our next step. Okay, so here I'm just adding detail to my ivy, and what I've used is this Memento ink. It is bamboo leaves, and I just used my dauber and I just went along the edges of the leaves and along the stem, and I also did the back as well. And then once I did that and that was dry, then I went in with my smallest stylus and I just imprinted my veins of the leaves like so. And then what I did is I took a bit of yellow and I just added it to the center of the leaf and to highlight these back veins here. And then I just took this pencil. This is a Prismacolor pencil. It is DECO yellow. And I just highlighted those veins that I just imprinted with my stylus. I just went in. Again, you're going to want this to be quite sharp. This is actually not sharp enough, but yours should be a little bit sharper. So yes, go ahead and do that. If you like, again, this is optional. So if you're happy with the color of your paper or whatever, you don't need to do this step. You can skip this altogether. But anyways, yeah, go ahead and do that if you like, and then we'll go off to the next step. Okay, so here I'm just shaping the leaves like we did with the bigger ones. You could use a toothpick just to curl the tips and just sort of vary it a bit like so. And just go ahead and do that to all of the leaves. Just add little curls here. You can use this little toothpick. You can just go like this and then do like a little S curve like that. Okay, so go ahead and do that to all of your ivy leaves, and then we'll go off to the next step. Okay, so here I'm just training the ivy around a dowel, and I first of all I put some masking tape at the bottom just to secure it in place, and then I'm just sort of winding it around this dowel at a 45-degree angle, you can see, and at the same time I'm just avoiding trapping my leaves. I'm just going around like so, trying to avoid this leaf here and turning it. So I'm just training it into shape here, right, like so. And then I'm going to avoid this leaf and I'm going to come around like so. And I'll continue all the way up to the top. So you've got about this much space between the base and the topiary. So just get it into shape that you like. I probably will go back and do a bit more shaping to my leaves, but this is just for demonstration purposes. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take this off and you're going to go wind it around your actual project dowel, and you'll be hot gluing that to your dowel in small areas, and just little, you're just going to be tacking it in place with the glue gun. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and then we'll go off to our next step. So we've finally completed our topiary lantern, and I think it turned out beautifully, and no doubt yours is just as gorgeous, if not more. If you enjoyed this project, don't forget to subscribe and visit my website at www.decouvert.com for the matching lamp and other fun projects. Thanks again for joining me on this tutorial, and happy crafting!